Hi, welcome everybody. And the following information comes from John's information page on CCL Community, the membership page. So he grew up in a small farming town in Connecticut, and his love of science led to a BS in biology and computer studies, which resulted in 30 years at Sun Microsystems and Oracle as a software coder and other responsibilities. Then in 2014, excuse me, he was inspired to try to stop construction of a 3-foot diameter pipeline through his small New Hampshire town. And a subsequent Google search of global warming solutions connected him to carbon fee and dividend and Citizens Climate Lobby. And he joined CCL because he found his tribe, which I thought was a really great way to describe it. The organization provided him training, resources, and support for what he'd been struggling to do on his own. Next, he's helped start a chapter, put together a slideshow book titled Why We Need Carbon Fee and Dividend. We'll provide links to that later. And he became New Hampshire's state coordinator. And I guess the rest is, as they say, history. So, John, welcome and thank you for being here today. And go ahead and get started.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much, Roger. Really excited to be here. I don't think there's anything I like doing more than sharing carbon fee and dividend with people who care. And so that's what this presentation is all about. I think, Marshall Saunders inspired me and the other leaders of CCL when I went down to my first conference in June of 2016. The first time I'd ever heard of CCL was a couple of weeks earlier when I found the website. And yeah, creating political will for a livable world, I think, really is important. It starts with carbon fee and dividend. So, okay, I've got a couple objectives in my talk. We'll take about a half an hour to go through the slides, and then I'll have time for questions. First, I'll establish that there's a growing carbon price target required for a relatively safe climate future. I'll review global carbon pricing progress. Carbon pricing is spreading, prices are rising, and CBAMs are coming. I'll talk about the source of the headwinds in the US that delayed putting a price on climate pollution for decades, how to communicate the landscape and policy, carbon fee and dividend policy with others, lessons we've learned in Canada and elsewhere, and share CFD resources that Citizens Climate Lobby has shared with me over the last 9 years. And then some CFD projects, ideas, and to make a call for policy-focused climate action. And conclude with sharing some of my heroes and inspire heroism uh, as much as I can. Okay, so let me get my slides going here. I don't. Okay, so this slideshow is available at the link carboncashback.org/carbon price gap. Sorry, I share this all the time, but it's
And while he's doing that, if you want to log your attendance, there's a link that's now in the chat.
okay. I think we're going. Can you see the title screen
Yes.
now? Terrific. All right, this is my daughter and I sharing a winter hiking day in the northern New Hampshire mountains. Um, I think connecting with nature and sharing that with her is something that is very meaningful to me. And I think one of the things that led me to think to spend time working to preserve the world we have for her and everybody in the future. Um, but what I kind of want to focus on with carbon fee and dividend today is from a global economic perspective, the question of who will lead in the 21st century. The US has invested in and led the major technological transitions in the last 100 years, from nuclear power to space flight, uh, computers, and the internet. We led and sold products to the world, and that is what made our country such a powerful economic force in the world. Um, Clean energy, the transition to a clean energy economy is the next major transition. And those who use the most powerful and cost-effective policies to lead it will enjoy the first mover advantages and the economic benefits for decades to come. As I said, this slideshow is available on the web, so I'll just skip through ones that have slides that have a lot of words on them. But we have a scientific consensus about a pollution problem from fossil fuels, and a rapidly closing window of opportunity to secure a livable and sustainable future, if we make the necessary policy changes in time. There's also economic consensus on the policies that are needed to do this. Um, and a carbon tax is the most cost-effective and powerful lever um, to steer market actors to make more fully informed decisions. It's also uh, known and communicated by experts that carbon pricing is required to achieve our climate goals. Former Secretary of Treasury Janet Yellen said in her confirmation hearing, "We cannot solve the climate crisis without effective carbon pricing." And this is something that the rest of the world agrees with. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, in a special report on global warming of 1.5 degrees, said explicit carbon prices remain a necessary condition of meeting ambitious climate goals. And the World Bank says carbon pricing is a critical part of the policy mix needed to both meet Paris Climate Agreement goals and support low emissions growth. Okay, so what is the US carbon price gap? There are actually three gaps that I'll talk about today. This is a graph that shows carbon prices on the vertical axis. These are dollars, US dollars per ton of carbon dioxide equivalent emissions going into the air, and then decades across the horizontal axis. The light gray line is the minimum target price in the IPCC's sixth assessment report for achieving a 1.5 degree um, target, maximum warming target. They specify several dates through this century and price ranges for those dates. And this gray line is just the minimum of those target prices. One of the prices is $135 per ton of CO2 equivalents in 2030. The range is from $135 to $6,050. You can possibly need a much higher carbon price to meet that target, but a minimum price is $135. And then it goes up to $690 per ton by 2100, or 30,000 at the top of the range there. That's the gray line, the academic study on a global level of a global carbon price necessary to meet goals, along with complementary policies. The colored lines show countries and regions. The green is Canada. Canada started with a carbon fee and dividend and an industrial price rising $10 Canadian a year. Several years after getting started, they raised it to grow by $15 Canadian a year, and they're on track to meet $135 US in 2030. They've rolled back their consumer facing price for oil and gasoline, but they're still doing their industrial price. That's still growing and will still hit that target. The blue line is the European Union carbon price. They're using cap and trade, so the price is variable. They have a specified amount of carbon emissions they allow in their industrial and electric generation sectors. The price is about $85 per ton now, and it is rising. And then the red line is the US, still with a zero price nationally. So the gap, there's several gaps. One is between the US price and target price needed globally for a safe future. Um, a second gap is the US price and that of our trading partners. Um, this matters because they're just about to start charging us their price in trade, the difference in the price. And then the final price is the gap between the global carbon price today, which is about $5 per ton of CO2 if you average it out, and the price we need globally for a safe future. Okay, En-ROADS is a climate policy simulator, which I'll show three quick scenarios. This is the business as usual case, global warming rising to about 3.3 degrees of warming this century. I like to say carbon fee and dividend is about half the solution to global warming because this carbon price growing 10 or $15 a year, with that growth extended through the rest of the century and pushed around the world through the use of a border carbon adjustment mechanism, um, according to the En-ROADS modeling, gets us zero point 0.9 degrees lower than our baseline case, which is halfway to 1.5. A price on pollution also makes all the complementary policies that are needed to reach that target easier to do. So, do you do the policies that are complementary first, or do you do carbon pricing first and then
Look over the
ride
options that
along
I
on the
put for
benefit of being able to have everything
If
easier to do
nightstand.
when
if
there's
I
no
could do
longer
it in
free to
45
pollute?
minutes and listen to this presentation, but this is,
Could everybody
I've
mute
seen the
themselves,
all right,
please?
I know what he's going to say. I just want to see how he says it.
Mute
Okay,
yourself,
so
please.
you have 45 minutes until you have to do that, or?
No, it's on
Wayne
now.
Willis, could you
Oh.
please mute yourself?
Oh, so you want to do it after,
After that.
so
Okay,
45
hold on. I'll
minutes
try
from
to.
now.
Right.
Sorry about this.
Thanks.
There we go.
Let's just say
Right.
3 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So, some things that people don't often say that I think we need to start saying sharing with everybody. Carbon pricing is spreading, prices are rising, and CBAMs are coming. This is a map from the World Bank's State and Trends of Carbon Pricing Report of 2025, showing the 80 countries and regions that are pricing carbon today. Uh, the US is the only developed country without a national price on carbon at this point. Globally, so the next couple slides are from the World Bank's report. 28% of fossil fuels are covered under some carbon price, and this is growing. And prices are rising. This is from a year or two earlier version of the report where they laid out some prices. This is showing carbon taxes rising. There's Canada, Ireland, and Switzerland. And then cap and trade prices are also rising, with the EU being one of the most aggressive. It's risen back up above 80. It's around $85 per ton of CO2 at this point. But most prices are still below the IPCC's target for a safe future. And they're held back by raising the price too high because of the concern about trade implications. If you charge too much for fossil fuels in your own economy, you get carbon leakage and production leakage over to countries where it's free to pollute. But carbon border adjustment mechanisms will address that problem, charging the price on pollution at the border on imports. And some CBAMs also rebate exporters. This levels the playing field in a country or region that is pricing carbon and strongly motivates other countries to match their carbon price. And the EU's CBAM starts in January of 2026, and they will not be the last. Because countries with complementary or similar carbon prices can join together in a club with no need to do a CBAM and trade between those countries. So the UK when the EU announced that it was going to do a CBAM, harmonized its price with the EU's price, and the UK will start a CBAM in 2027. Japan will start a CBAM in 2028, and Australia and Canada are also looking very closely at doing a CBAM also. If you add the United States to that carbon club, you get a good proportion of the global economy pricing carbon, which will strongly motivate the rest of the world to match our price. In Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot, two men wait for another man who never arrives. The play is an example of the 1950s theater of the absurd, which in Europe after World War II explored emotions at that time of the absurdity of existence, the purposelessness of life, and how suffering increases with the passage of time. Is the rest of the world waiting for the US to price carbon the modern case of the theater of the absurd? No. Waiting for a US carbon price is the opposite of waiting for Godot. CCL's founder, Marshall Saunders, sometimes shared a favorite quote from Man and Superman by George Bernard Shaw. It begins with, "This is the true joy in life, to be used for a purpose recognized by yourself as a mighty one." Our purpose in CCL, creating the political will for federal carbon fee and dividend legislation, is indeed a mighty one. It will be transformative to the global economy, which negates the first premise of Godot, the meaningless of life. The part about increasing suffering over time is happening today from climate pollution, and it is why our efforts to embody Marshall's vision are so important. Less pollution means less suffering. But is carbon pricing possible in the US? The industrial headwinds, the industrial, ideological, and political headwinds are very strong. And the US is still the only developed country without a carbon price, but CBAMs will increase the pressure on the US to price carbon. And Canada, which is quite similar to the US, did it. And they did it with good policy and good messaging. And something that Greta Thunberg said in her speech to the UN struck home to me when she said, "Until you start focusing on what needs to be done rather than what is politically possible, there is no hope." And CCL was created to create the political will to enable things that are difficult to do to happen. There's been headwinds, though, for 4 or 5 decades in pricing carbon, because this will affect the profits of a very powerful industry. The resistance kind of started 50 years ago with the Powell memo, which went to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and a lot of research has been done about the headwinds from the moneyed interests. Merchants of Doubt is a book by Harvard science historian Naomi Oreskes about the front groups and organizations that popped up to take money from industry and sow doubt in scientific conclusions to delay legislative action to address pollution problems. Inside Climate News is an investigative reporting outfit that 10 years ago came out with a Pulitzer nominated series of articles about what Exxon knew decades ago about the science of climate change and their decision to exaggerate the scientific uncertainty in order to maximize short-term profits. And Robert Brule did a study of the flow of money before and after Citizens United, showing that money was flowing from fossil fuel interests to into politics and to front groups, which acted kind of as PR organizations to exaggerate the uncertainty and confuse the public about the problem of and the scientific certainty of the pollution problem to delay legislative action. It's also been in popular media. Frontline did a three-part series about the power of big oil. Um, and Senator Whitehouse has done over 300 talks on the Senate floor. You can search on YouTube for these. His Time to Wake Up series, and also the Scheme Talks is another series, the corporate scheme to capture the Supreme Court. And then Outrage and Optimism is a great podcast with some of the world leaders in climate policy. Number 200 is a great one that talks about the headwinds and the policies and the progress that are being made around the world. And Al Gore's started out trying to work with the fossil fuel industry, but his last TED Talk was about the fossil fuel industry executives and billionaires' efforts to delay necessary legislation to address pollution. Okay, so in the interest of time, I'm going to skip through these. This is that was the Exxon lead lobbyist being caught in a sting operation and explaining that the fossil fuel that Exxon said they wanted a carbon price because they knew a carbon price wasn't going to happen. How did they know that it wasn't going to happen? Well, because they spent quite a bit of money preventing it from happening. And you can read more about the good actor face and the bad actor face of Exxon and other major oil and gas producers at notnodder.org/the game. It's if you go to the oil and gas majors websites, they almost all agree with the science that there's a climate pollution problem from fossil fuels that should be taken seriously. And many of them on their web pages, and there's links to them on the game page, that say they support a carbon price on fossil fuels. However, at the same time, many of them are funding front groups, PR firms, media, and politics, promoting myths, half-truths, and lies to delay that legislation. These include front groups, some of whom were created by the Koch brothers and sympathetic other billionaires, including ALEC, Heartland Institute, the Heritage Foundation, Americans for Prosperity, and others. And these groups are active both at the state and national levels. And it's not just Congress that they're working on. The Supreme Court has been manipulated by the Federalist Society, billionaires who picked the justices that they knew would be sympathetic to their keep pollution-free interests. And then President Trump made the offer to oil executives during his campaign. If you give me $1 billion for my campaign, I'll do what you want when I get elected. So we have it coming at us from all three branches of the federal government. This is another resource, dsmog.com, exposes the money flows from billionaire family foundations and other sources into these front groups that are PR organizations to delay putting a price on their pollution. Okay, and this is Justice Thomas having a cigar with Harlan Crow, one of those billionaires, who's given him millions of dollars of vacations and other benefits. They weren't friends before Justice Thomas was on the Supreme Court, but they're good friends these days. So carbon pricing comes from different angles, including climate advocates, because fossil fuel influences pushing extremism on both sides. Senator Whitehouse is a good source of information about this. As I mentioned, his Time to Wake Up series. These are a couple of the best. The links to all of these resources in this presentation are in the notes for each slide. So you can click on the YouTube links in the notes for this slide. CCL provides great resources for defending against these dark arts. CCL's Dana Nuccitelli was a prime author on skepticalscience.com and he's obviously a key source of information for CCL volunteers today. And Citizens Climate Radio did an 8-part series earlier this year called Hot Mess: How Climate Consensus Led to Political Chaos. He talked about the role of media spreading climate skepticism, and on the progressive side, fear-based messaging to divide people rather than having them work together where they are. So the fossil fuel industry has delayed action, protecting their profits at costs we now see each year at about $700 billion for the US, external costs of using fossil fuels. Okay, Catherine McKenna helped do carbon fee and dividend in Canada. There's a couple great resources I'll share with her, both before and after. Um, it before it was in place, while it was in place, and now after the consumer price has been removed. She said it takes two things to do carbon fee and dividend. Um, the implementation details, the policy details matter, and the messaging matters. And her messaging for it is we're making it no longer free to pollute, and you're getting more money back. Right. And you're getting more money back is the second part of our message. And that makes it about 10 to 15% more popular, according to studies that Jonathan Marshall and others in CCL have shared with us. So it goes from 60 to 65% popular, just making it no longer free to pollute, to quite a bit more popular with that. But Canada rolled back its consumer price because of poor messaging after the price started rising. They did an annual rebate, and it was just on the tax form that people didn't connect to the carbon fee, and it became a quarterly rebate from banks, but it wasn't identified as clearly by any bank to consumers what that money was coming from. So what we've learned is that we have to anticipate industry mischief because one of the provinces, the fossil fuel industry pushed a bill. That province required gasoline stations to put the increase in gasoline price on each pump that was caused by the fee. They didn't tell people that 80% of Canadian families were coming out ahead because of the dividend. Um, but these tricks are now predictable. We've seen them happen, so we can anticipate them when we do a carbon fee and dividend bill. Um, yeah, so Canada stopped messaging the policy after it was legislated, and then they had to retract the whole policy. So we can't do that. The importance of political will doesn't stop after legislation. On the community forum in CCL, somebody asked, is it too late for carbon fee and dividend? The answer is no from CCL's experts. Jonathan Marshall said carbon pricing will always be the most potent measure for curbing greenhouse gas emissions. Dana Nuccitelli said there is no too late because a carbon price will always be effective at reducing climate pollution. And George Dunnart shared a quote from Marshall Saunders. He said, constancy is my favorite value. So many people will go for a little while and get excited for a year or two, but it's really constancy that gets things done. So constancy in creating political will for carbon fee and dividend, I'm pretty sure, is what he was talking about. CCL has carbon fee and dividend superpowers. These are all resources that CCL has shared to me, and I'm just going to go really quickly through them all. You can reach this slideshow to go to the notes for details about each one of them. We listen to experts. We have fun. Pictures are better than words. Our carbon fee and dividend laser talk and 2-minute intro video are amazingly powerful ways to communicate the policy to people that have never heard about it before. We know equity and fairness is important. We understand the importance of political will and bipartisan policies. And we help citizens create political will by sharing resources and actions, encouraging next steps, and following up. And our bipartisan approach assures a durable policy once it's put in place. Okay, so we listen to experts. This is Gregory Mankiw. He was a chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors for President George W. Bush. And he says, the closest thing I know to a panacea in the climate change debate is putting a price on carbon and rebating the revenue to citizens. This is a carbon pricing explained with Chicken's video. This is from the Household Impact Study. This is from a CCL website, actually. That's a picture of carbon fee and dividend. A polluter's fee at the source, a household rebate to everybody, and a border adjustment to make U.S. businesses more competitive and hold other countries accountable. That's a 2-minute intro to CCL video that describes carbon fee and dividend and creating political will. And this is the household impact study, one of the graphs in it showing the highly progressive effect of an equal per capita share rebate of all the money collected each month. And then the Climate Leadership Council did research on the U.S. carbon advantage, how much competitive advantage U.S. producers get in trade with other countries because we are one of the cleanest producers in the world. This is a 2025 update of a report that came out several years ago, and it's what we're trying to get Congress to do with the Prove It Act legislation. But you can see economy-wide, China is 3.6 times more carbon intensive than the US. So if we want to really make US goods more competitive than Chinese goods, a carbon price in the US economy and a CBAM to hold China accountable for its pollution is a great way to do that. And then, of course, we have the Economist Statement, the largest public statement by economists about anything ever, endorsing the carbon fee and dividend with a border adjustment policy. Okay. So we have political will problems. Neither Biden nor Obama did carbon fee and dividend, though both of them knew about it. Why is that? That's because citizens climate lobby volunteers have more work to do. Carbon pricing is required to meet Biden's goals of several years ago of 50% emissions reductions by 2030. It's still required. So how can we help create political will for carbon fee and dividend? Use good messaging, shouldn't be free to pollute, give the money back. A CBAM pushes it around the world, and carbon fee and dividend gets us about halfway to the global goal of a safe future. Talk about this with your friends, families, influencers, and legislators. Start off with a catchy question. Have you ever heard of cashback carbon pricing? Share actions and resources. So Citizens Climate Lobby has easy ways for citizens to write Congress, cclusa.org/write-cfd. And the CFD resources link here is a Google Drive of a collection of resources from CCL and other places about the carbon fee and dividend policy. And it all comes down to finding common ground to bridge the partisan divide, because there's no reason for everybody not to support a market-based, revenue-neutral policy that makes U.S. businesses more competitive and holds other countries accountable for their pollution. And CCL, we keep learning from experts, from James Hansen to Jonathan Marshall, and Danny Richter has great information about carbon pricing offered to CCL volunteers. From a conservative perspective, we have George Schultz and Ted Halstead, the wonderful article, The Winning Conservative Climate Solution. Jerry Taylor gave a libertarian view of why carbon fee and dividend is a great policy. This is a talk he gave at Widener University, and it's on YouTube. Rex Tillerson spent 20 minutes expounding on the benefits of a carbon fee and dividend when he was CEO of Exxon. And Elon Musk this year in February tweeted an 8-minute video, X'd or posted an 8-minute video that concluded with him narrating the only action needed to solve climate change is a carbon tax. It's economics 101. And he also recommended a rebate. So these are good things to share with different groups. Um, so there's been a number of collective action movements in U.S. history to get major changes done. And that's really what we need to do with carbon fee and dividend. We need to get this in national media. We need to get people talking about it. There's a school project to do this called the Carbon Fee and Dividend Movement. It involves sharing signs like these. Students print out posters and hang them all over bulletin boards, hundreds of posters across campus to create a buzz. And then they offer a teach-in where they invite an economist who teaches at the school to explain and answer questions about the policy. And then, of course, they give out pizza and they encourage everybody to write Congress using their link, which goes to a CCL page that sends a message to their members of Congress. This is in dozens of schools now. We'd like to see it in hundreds of schools. There's an action team in CCL for higher ed, and a sub team of that is the Friends of the CFD movement. So if you want some resources on how to connect with the local school club, go in and give a inspiring En-ROADS demo, show a couple quick videos about carbon pricing and creating political will, and offer the CFD movement as a project that the school club can do. Check it out at the Higher Ed Action Team. The CFD movement is in dozens of schools now, but we need it to expand across to hundreds of schools to be able to start having most effective pizza parties and getting national attention to point the media at the carbon fee and dividend policy. And you can speak up at democracy rallies. I like to go there. This was one in Derry. The speaker that is pictured was a former Republican state senator who was talking about the need to protect the rule of law and other things in our democracy. And when I spoke, I said, you know, I've been fighting these fossil fuel billionaires for 10 years. Welcome to the fight. We need to hold these billionaire polluters accountable for their pollution by charging them for their pollution and giving the money to us. Come on over to learn how to write Congress to ask them to do this through the carbon fee and dividend policy. And I get a little crowd after I speak, and I point them at CCL and can encourage them to write Congress for carbon fee and dividend. So I contend that we need climate policy focused climate action, carbon fee and dividend policy focused climate action. If you're interested in lobbying Congress, not with an ask, but with an offer of information, you can check out the Carbon Price Gap article, which goes through some of the main talking points. Carbon pricing is spreading, prices are rising, and CBAMs are coming that I mentioned earlier. We should be using all 5 levers of creating political will for carbon fee and dividend constantly. It's complementary to the other things CCL leadership is advising us to do. Okay, so one of the things when we lobby Congress every summer, we bring a list of our all the grass tops and municipal endorsements for carbon fee and dividend that we've collected through the year. This motivates volunteers to do that through the year. And 33 towns in New Hampshire have voted to send a resolution to Congress and the president asking for carbon fee and dividend legislation driven from a project at carboncashback.org. Maine has now had 30 of their towns have voted to pass the same resolution and have that sent to Congress. There's a couple of things I'd recommend changing with the policy that is now a bit dated. In order to close the US carbon price gap as needed, we need to start at a slightly higher price, rise more steeply each year. And if we don't rebate the fossil fuel exporters in our CBAM, we collect hundreds of billions of dollars that Congress can use to help make the policy more viable, such as an extra big check the first month of the policy, a rebate for every driver of any vehicle type for miles driven. You just have to report the number of miles you've driven in a passenger car for the last year, and you get the difference in what if you were getting 30 miles per gallon, you get rebated what the fee cost you in higher prices. We can rebate extra money to families that live in fossil fuel producing regions because obviously those communities are going to be harder hit than communities that just use fossil fuels when we put a price on pollution. And we can subsidize doing the things that we want to help people do to reduce their pollution. And we may also have to revoke the permission of the fossil fuel industry to advertise or participate in politics, as we did with big tobacco when that industry proved to be not a good actor in putting profits over human health and pollution, according to science. So thank you all for helping create the political will to close the growing U.S. carbon price gap. I don't know if we have time for questions, but I really appreciate your attention and ears on this. If you're interested in more information about this material, you can go to carboncashback.org/carbon price gap.
Okay. Thank you, John. So we do have a little bit of time for questions, maybe, well, try to do it in 5 minutes or so, but let's, does anybody have something they'd like to, and if you would raise your hand, just go down to where I think it says react and raise your hand, or you can just raise your hand. We'll call on you. Larry Kramer.
Is the slide, are the slides going to be available? Because I like that map that shows all the different countries, 80 countries that have some sort of form of.
Yes, at that link that I just said at the end of the presentation, and I'll put it into chat. That's a web page with all of the resources. There's an hour-long recording of this presentation. There's the presentation slides. There's a 2-page article with some graphs that we use as our leave behind when we lobby Congress. So that's all there at that web page. I'll put it into chat again. Thank you, Larry. Yes, Wakar.
John, thank you. Thank you. Great presentation. And I'm glad to see that you are continuing to champion carbon pricing and carbon fee and dividend because CCL is not any longer since 2022, I would say. And that's just the reality of it. We're basically told to focus on incremental policies that may have a chance of passing, and some of them I'm very sure are actually going to make carbon pollution worse rather than better. So a first step might be to try to get CCL oriented towards actually supporting carbon fee and dividend again. If you could suggest that.
I met with Brett and Ricky in the last week and a half to make my pitch for that, but I need help. So if you can communicate with them and the board members the next couple of weeks, this is the time to do it. They're coming up with a strategy that they're going to reveal to CCL volunteers in October. They're trying to decide exactly what priorities to put on things. So if you believe that, like I do, let them know. We need to create political will within CCL to enable them to create political will for carbon fee and dividend.
Yeah, we do, and John, I'm a liaison, but I'm not, at the level, and then having been with CCL that long and not at the level that you're at. So, I've not seen any direct way of being able to communicate with CCL management or the board that would be effective. Is there one?
Yeah, so you can go to About CCL and find the list of board members, and then you can look them up on Community to find their email address.
Okay.
So, just pick a couple key board members, and, Ricky and Brett have accessible email addresses, and they want to hear from us too. So as a liaison, you've got a strong voice. You're a serious, dedicated CCL volunteer, and they will listen to you. Especially being new, that will help. Us people that have been around longer than 5 years, we grew up having Marshall and Mark and even Danny telling us this stuff, and then yeah, they went off track and they actually updated the core values on the website, which used to say we are laser focused on creating political will for carbon fee and dividend, and we won't let ourselves be distracted by lesser policies as other organizations are. Um, how they could change that to say we. So I think there's a lot of inside the beltway thinking in CCL now, and I think we need to step back and say what did Marshall create this organization to do? Um, and let's get back to that. That's what's inspired me to stay with CCL all these years.
So I just want to add, I met with Ricky last week and he created a survey. I'll find it and post it in the chat. And that is a way to communicate directly with him.
Great. Thank you, Elaine. I'm going to go to Larry Howe, who hasn't spoken yet.
Yeah, hi, John. Great presentation and great reminder of what, we were kind of really focused on. I think I can't remember how I had heard this, but I think one of the tidbits that I had picked up on, the direction for CCL at different points in time, unfortunately can be tied to our grants and donors. Uh, and sometimes the messaging from donors is, we want you to focus on something that can really get done, in the next short time period. And if you do that, we'll donate lots of money. We'll give you grants or kind of things like that. And, that could be some kind of underlying complication to yes, we need to stay laser focused on carbon fee and dividend, but then we won't have any money to, do something. Anyway, that's one of the things kind of I've heard weaved into a story. I don't know if it's completely true, but CCL has had some financial challenges over the, past COVID and all the other stuff. So anyway, it may be more complicated than it's obviously appears. So just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I agree, Larry. I've heard that, and I think that if that's the case, what we need to do is spend more time looking for the billionaire who can be inspired. Like, I'm serious. I've got a list
No,
of
it's a good idea.
billionaires,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we need somebody like the woman who divorced the Amazon guy, and she's got $60 billion, and she's looking to do the right thing. So, if we can find somebody to go to a cocktail party with a billionaire, 15 minutes to inspire them just with the first part of the message here and use the right talking points. Hey, we've got this organization. You can change the world literally with $5 million a year, which to some people is nothing.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea.
So
So
a
keep your ears
billionaire
open.
elevator talk is what we need.
Yeah.
Okay. Stuart will be the last question.
Well, I thought Mark Tabbert was raising his hand, and then
Oh, okay.
if he,
I appreciate that. I was on the board for 10 years, and I want everyone to know that I've called every board member and told them my thoughts about the fact that we've lost our focus. And if we don't return, we're never going to be the same group. We've got great people on the field doing the right things, but they're not being told the right story anymore. There's a long discussion. I think Amy, I haven't read all the different comments. I think her name is Amy Livingston or something like that. And there's a long deal in the nerds team. And no one mentioned the fact that we don't decide whether it's electricity or nuclear. That's not our job. Our job is to let the market decide. That was the whole core of CCL. Anyway, I've talked to half the board members directly. I've seen all the board members of message that we should, and I think they're going to make a decision in October. And I think you all, everybody on this call, can talk to a board member, and you can call it Ross Astoria. They're all a lot of them. A lot of them are very accessible.
Thank you, Mark, and
Now,
Stuart.
a very quick comment. So it was carbon fee and dividend that suckered me into CCL, and it seems to me that some of the comments in the liaison forum and the group leaders forum about carbon fee and dividend, some people have said that congressional offices have stated, well, we've heard that, don't bother unless you have something new. And I think this has to be a two-pronged approach. When when we're meeting people, we should be talking about carbon fee and dividend. We need to educate the masses. When we go into DC to lobby, we can lobby for these other things if there's not a bill available for us to support. But we have to increase the number of people who understand what carbon fee and dividend is and separate that initially from what we do when we go into a congressional office.
I agree 100%, Stuart. In one of the slides that I skipped over, there's a list of CFD related projects that CCL volunteers can do. I've created a list of 15 or 20 of them. And yeah, when we're lobbying, we don't have to ask a carbon fee and dividend thing. We can offer a 5-minute update based on the State and Trends of Carbon Pricing World Bank report, or something that's going on, the EU CBAM, to keep their minds realizing that the longer they go, the larger this U.S. carbon price gap is growing, and there's implications for our economy, jobs, and we're going to be paying other countries the gap between the U.S. price and other countries' price. It's growing, and so they're not going to wait for us. We're missing out. We're losing. We've lost the big opportunity of being the leader, but we don't want to end up being a follower. We should at least try to get back in the race. Thank you, Stuart. I agree 100%. Secondary asks and action teams are excellent places to put those other policies. Have a permitting reform action team, an electrification action team, and secondary asks and bubble up, where we can make our inside the Beltway. What can we do this month? Asks. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, John. Really appreciate it. And what we'll do now, round of applause, please, for John.
Thank you.
Obviously, not everybody has to stick around, but if you want your chance at winning a $10 Starbucks card, please do. And let me pull up the slide. And then our resident expert, Dr. Barry Friedman, will run this part of the meeting. We will go a little bit over, but believe me, it's well worth it. Okay, share.
So, John, I just want to say I can't find your slides for this. I was told that there's a link at the bottom of the doc that you posted, the website that you posted, but it doesn't look like they're these slides. Maybe I'm stupid. I don't know.
Okay, well, while that's being set up, the link that I shared in chat that's there right now, if you click on that and go to that webpage and search for presentation, you will find the slide presentation on that page. And I can touch base with you after this.
Are you all seeing my slides right now?
Yes, climate knowledge competition.
Okay.
Yes.
I see it.
Oops. Sorry. Slideshow from start. Okay. Nope, not from start.
Okay, are we
All right.
ready? Oh,
You gotta give the rules, Barry.
okay. No using external sources. Just keep track. This is the honor system, and at the end we'll give the answers. And anything else, Roger, that I forgot? Or
No, I think that's it. We'll get started here.
okay, good. Okay, question 1. The Trump administration halted construction of Revolution Wind, a large wind farm off the coast of A, Maine, B, New York, C, California, or D, Rhode Island. Okay, I guess should I
Okay.
okay. Question 2. A federal judge on September 22nd ruled that construction of Revolution Wind A must permanently stop, B, must stop work as the case proceeds. C, continue work as the case proceeds, or D, can permanently continue. Question 3. In the month of August, wind and solar made up more than blank of Brazil's electricity generation. Pick the correct fraction. A, 1/10, B, 1/3, C, 1/2, or D, 2/3. Don't put your answers in the chat. That's bad. Put it on a piece of paper. Darren Woods, who's the CEO of ExxonMobil, at the University of Texas Energy Symposium, said ExxonMobil had invented a new form of blank, which will extend electric vehicle battery life by 30%. A, lithium, B, graphite, C, cobalt, or D, iron. Question 5. Extreme weather in Europe in the summer of 2025 is estimated to cost the European economy A, 50 billion, B, 100 billion, C, 500 billion, D, $1 trillion. Question 6. ICE raided an electric vehicle battery plant in the first week of September. In what state is the plant? A, Alabama, B, Georgia, C, Mississippi, or D, Michigan? Question 7. The detained workers from the above electric vehicle battery plant were from which country? A, China, B, South Korea, C, Mexico, D, Canada, or E, Albania? And now the bonus, the tiebreaker if it's needed. The peak of Tesla sales in China in 2020 was 20%. Tesla's market share in China in August 2025 was blank. Note, this is pretty tough. Tenths of a percent matter. Okay, very good.
Are we ready, Dr. Barry, to go through the answers?
Yeah, I am ready. Is everyone ready?
Okay. I can feel the tension mounting. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
You don't have to go through. I got them all right.
Larry, let's be modest, please.
I think we just stop it now and give the prize to Larry, right?
No. Question 1. The answer is Revolution Wind, Rhode Island. Question 2. Can continue work as the case proceeds. Question 3. 1/3 the Brazil's electricity. Question 4. Graphite. Question 5. $50 billion. That's the damages estimate. Question 6. Georgia. Question 7. No, they were not from Albania. It was South Korea.
Gosh, I got that one wrong.
Oh, Roger, you better study harder.
Okay. And here's the tiebreaker. Oh, wait a second. Let's see how many correct answers. Um, Go ahead, Barry. Well, let's see whether we need a tiebreaker.
Did anyone get 7 correct?
7 or
Well, there are only 7.
okay.
7 correct? 6 correct? 5 correct?
I got 6.
6.
Oh, 6.
Anyone else get 6?
Okay, I want him to answer the percentage question anyway.
Yes.
This puts at least puts some pressure on him.
Put
So,
some pressure.
What'd you say, Larry?
Oh, well, this was, what do you call that? A swag? I just said 9.9.
Okay.
I think the answer, Roger, is at 4.4. Okay.
I was double the right answer, right?
Yeah.
Roughly, roughly, yes.
I think what that
Okay.
means is that it's a $10 Starbucks card, so you're only going to get a $5 Starbucks card.
It was interesting
No.
as when you do this on these past ones, a lot of them I haven't been keyed in on, but the topic about the Rhode Island wind farm and the power of the raid in Georgia, those were kind of on top of mind. And I had just recently seen something in some podcast that they talked about Europe. The summer heat had been $50 billion. So it was kind of like, oh my gosh,
Wow.
Well, I guess we're going to have to make it harder.
Well,
yeah.
as a study, if you can get on Facebook and come to the Facebook page, Citizens Climate Lobby CCL Texas, I post these things, and Barry and Larry, I know you're on that site. I see your likes. Thank you very much for doing that. Anyway, if you want to study the current events, a moment of beauty, some just the facts, ma'am, and actually global information is on that site. So,
Okay. Well,
Congratulations, Larry.
yes.
Enjoy your coffee. And is there a tariff on that card or something? Or
Oh yeah, the coffee is kind of
coffee.
right?
yeah, coffee's
Coffee
gone
too.
up. Yeah. Or
And Larry-
diluted or something. I don't know what.
This is the first time I've ever gotten close enough to win. So
there you go.
Oh yeah.
So John, I want you to turn this into a trivia game that the different chapters can play at the end of their meetings. I think that would be really fun. And then we can the chapter leaders can give away some gift.
Well, I guess we can franchise this is what you're saying.
Yes.
there you go.
And
I just want to thank you all for your interest in carbon pricing. It warms my heart that there are still people in CCL that believe carbon fee and dividend is what we should be creating political will for. And yeah, thanks very much for.
I think there is going to be a reset, and how much that is and how it's going to work it remains to be seen. But I think there is going to be one.
If I could add one quick comment. I know here in San Antonio, our membership, the new people who sign on is quite significant. And these new people know nothing about carbon fee and dividend because that's not in your face up front. So I think that at a minimum, we have to be able to introduce carbon fee and dividend to all these new people who are coming in.
I agree. For tabling and doing presentations and collecting endorsements, it's what we can train thousands of people to do. This border forward Gen 4, we're going to be really tricky and stuff with carbon pricing. That's not going to fly to teach a lot of people a moving target, for advocating for it. Carbon fee and dividend has just got so many great resources in support of it. And, telling people it's half the solution to global warming or half the solution to climate change is, a nice little hook.
I just want to add, so I do student presentations. I do about 50 of them every year, and I use En-ROADS, and it focuses on pricing carbon the socially just way with a dividend and the border adjustment. And it really lights students up and helps them to feel hopeful, shows them the path forward. And then we all use the QR code to write to our representatives asking for the price on carbon with the rebate. And this is something, doing this has just transformed our chapter. I will share my slides with you. It is really impactful. And so I really encourage all of you to think about doing this, or just, arrange for the presentations and then have John drop in to do a remote presentation.
Happy
Well,
to.
Elaine, maybe you need to do one of these cocktails and conversations for us.
Would you like to?
Sure.
Okay. Well, we will get you on the schedule. I dropped my email into the chat. Where are you located, Elaine?
So I'm just south of San Francisco.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. So, and then this has been recorded. I'm going to turn that off now.